I still remember the memory of my older brother bringing home video games so that we can play. And I vividly remember that Max Payne, despite our difficulties to play on our old PC, seemed like extremely fun game to play. Unfortunately, due to some reasons, we couldn't play it. And I spent years just hearing praises about this game without being able to play. After a while, I just forgot about the game, but recently some things reminded me of it, so I decided to give the Max Payne series a go. Despite the difficulties of running it on Windows 10 and some other things like finding the game, I finally played the game. The first part, like usual, contains the plot of the game, so if you still haven't played this game after like 20 years, spoiler alert. Here is the Max Payne 1. So the plot starts on a cold night in New York City, and we hear Max telling how everything led to this, and with a single bullet, everything is stopped. But for us to know why there are so many cops surrounding him, some information is needed. We head back to 3 years ago. Max Payne is a happy detective whom has achieved the American dream, as he says. His friend in the DEA, Alex, asks him to work for him, which he replies that he will probably work undercover in some hellhole. And he says that he can't do that, and family comes first. Everything seems fine, but as he says,
but dreams have a nasty habit of going bad when you're not looking.
He heads home, but his house is a wreck, and the telephone rings and says that there will be no assistance. Alone, Max faces some people in mental patient costumes and kills them, but he finds out that his family has been murdered. 2 years later, we see him joining DEA and working undercover to find the ones responsible for the drug that caused his family's death. Apparently, those patients were affected by a drug named V, short for Valkyr. His time in the mob reveals to him a link to the man apparently responsible, Jack Lupino. He then was contacted by Bibi, one of the two people who knew he was undercover, to meet Alex, his old friend, and also the only other person who knew Max was undercover. He went there to meet in the metro, but things went south and Max found himself trapped in a mob fight and later on a bank heist. Max kills his way out, but in doing so makes himself vulnerable to the police. And then later on, when he sees Alex, Alex is murdered by someone and the fault is put on Max Payne. After leaving the metro, he makes his way to Jack Lupino's hotel to pay him a visit, but is faced with the Finito brothers. After making quick works of them, he finds out that Rico Muerte is in the hotel, and he fights his way out of the hotel and finds the room of a prostitute named Candy, whom is taping the one-eyed Alfred and sending the video to the old hag, as it was written in her diary. He then fights his way through the bar and finds Rico and Candy being really intimate with each other. After ruining their party, Max Payne leaves the hotel and makes his way to the other building Jack Lupino owns, which now his hired henchman, Vinny Cogniti, is stationed. While the building is getting bombed by the Russian mafia and therefore has several damages in its structure. After entering the structure and finding his way through, he hears a call in the phone booth and answers. He is contacted by someone named Alfred Woden, and he warns Max Payne that police knows he is there. After making his way to Cogniti's room, Max has a fierce encounter with him, and after shooting him, Cogniti makes a run for it. After dispatching his men, he reads a letter from Cogniti to Don Punchinello, head of the Punchinello family which Jack Lupino is part of. By reading the letter, we find out Jack Lupino is a psycho and is extremely dangerous. Max chases Vinny, and after a long chase and killing lots of mobsters, he finally confronts Cogniti in an alley and shoots him again. Cogniti begs Max to not kill him and tells the hiding place of Lupino to him. Max leaves him to bleed and leaves for the nightclub in which Lupino is located. Lupino's hideout is a nightclub with a gothic castle theme, which homes the dangerous criminals Lupino keeps with himself. After making his way throughout the club, we find evidence that some occult stuff is happening here, and the name Ragnarok is not accidental at all. After fighting Lupino's goons and making his way deeper into the club, Max discovers stuff that gives him the idea that Lupino has completely went nuts. In the backstage of the club, he saw sacrifices and other occult readings that could be found, wondering where Lupino could be. And Max finds a note discovering that Don Punchinello is also threatening Lupino with the trial, Don's famous hitmans. Finally, he makes his way to Lupino's inner sanctum, and after fighting an army of killers, Lupino shows himself. Extremely high on the drug Valkyr, he babbles something about being the chosen and fight Max with his two goons. Max kills him and continues to show his dead body, saying that Valkyr makes them turn into zombies. He is stopped by an unknown female figure. This female figure turns out to be Mona Sachs, twin of the Don's wife. After pointing their gun to each other, they put their guard down. But Max is poisoned with a wine containing V, which turns out unknown woman out of nowhere isn't trustworthy at all. After getting hallucinations from the drug, Max is drowned in a maze-like dream of his dead wife and child, and they are presented more with her wife and her job. After finding her, he wakes up again to reality and finds himself tied to a chair and getting beat by Frankie Niagara. After cracking a joke about cartoon violence, he leaves Max to grab something to eat in the bar. Max, showing regret in himself for not aiming higher, moves and goes on to break the chair he is tied to. His equipment is taken and he can only use the bad Niagara left. He is back in Lupino's hotel and must make his way to the head of Punchinello's family. After killing everyone and leaving the hotel, Max decides to make a visit to the bar, and on his way, hears the news that Mona has been caught by the trio while trying to kill the Don, and the trio are nothing but bad news. After that, he also learns that he is framed dead by someone, and his guess is probably Punchinello. After making his way to the bar and killing Frankie, Max leaves there in a rush but is confronted by Vladimir, Punchinello family's enemy. He asks Max for a favor to recover his ship Karen from a guy who used to run errands for him named Boris Dime. There are enough equipment in the ship to start a war, and Vladimir promises to help him on his way to Punchinello. Max agrees and makes his way to the Brooklyn riverfront. After fighting his war throughout the containers and sea, Max makes his way to a container which belonged to Rico Muerte. In it, there were documents about murdering other figures like Mayor and not only family members. After making his way to Karen and fighting a hard battle with Dime, he captures the ships, decides to make a move on Punchinello, and calls him to make him fall for his trap. Punchinello says that it's time to see him, and gives him a location, his restaurant. Max arrives at the restaurant, but the restaurant is rigged with explosives. Expecting this outcome, Max runs away from the restaurant and makes his way to the sewers. After exiting the sewers, Vladimir finds him and offers him a ride to Punchinello's manor. Max finally heads to the Punchinello's house to settle stuff, and inviting him in are corpses of Punchinello's men, hinting at someone killing them, probably Mona. After arriving in the manor and killing one of the trios, Max finds out from Alfred Woden that there is a helicopter landing in the manor, and he must hurry. In one of the rooms, he finds the lifeless body of Lisa Punchinello. After finding Punchinello, the Don became scared and tried to bite himself some time, but suddenly some agents drop in and kill him. After leaving the room, he is surrounded by agents, and a mysterious woman is in control of them. After injecting Max with a high dose of weed, Max passes out and is taken into a place. After hallucinating again of his wife and child, he wakes up to his senses, feeling sick. He remembered the woman, telling a location named Cold Steel, his only clue right now. Max decided to pay the foundry a visit and see what's happening. After fighting his way throughout the facility and an army of armed thugs, Max finally learns about the origins of the drug V. The drug was based on Norse mythology, and a secret experiment done by government in order to create soldiers with more stamina and morale. This led to creation of this drug, but since the results were unsatisfactory, it was cancelled. But a certain someone continued this project and created mass-produced V, and the ones that were used in the experiment had their dosage doubled, and loosed on Max Payne's house as an experiment, which led to the death of his wife and child. Since there is nothing more to learn, Max escapes from the facility and thinks about his day. In an all-night diner, Max is contacted by Bibi, his old contact in police, which asks him to visit him. Max, finally realizing it was Bibi who killed Alex, goes on to face him. BB, after realizing Max knows about everything, goes on to shoot him. After a long battle in the underground parking lot, Max finally kills BB, and then is contacted by Alfred Woden. Alfred asks Max Payne to visit him in the Asgard building. After reaching there, Max is met by Alfred, which then goes on to introduce him to a group he calls Inner Circle. He provides the information that the mysterious woman is Nicole Horn, and she is the key figure in all of these projects and accidents that happen to Max, and asks him to kill Nicole Horn. After this, they are suddenly attacked by Horn's mercenary and all of the Inner Circle are killed. Max makes his way out of the room and within the building understands that Alfred is very well alive and knows what he is doing. Within the building, Max also finds documents that suggest Horn was blackmailing the Inner Circle and takes it as a safekey. He also finds the map of Aesir building, the one Horn resides, and makes use of it. After escaping the building, Max takes his time to prepare and build up his rage, and then makes his way to Aesir building. After fighting a large mercenary group, Max finds Mona, and finds out that she is Horn's killer. But Mona has no intention of killing Payne. Suddenly the security shows up and a bullet makes its way to Mona's head. She is dead, or at least it looks like it. After a long fight up to the highest floor of the building, Max finally confronts Horn and they start to fight. At least they're mercenaries. After a long chase, Max makes his way to the roof and Nicole is hitching a ride to get away. But Max shoots the strings of the antenna which then lands on the helicopter and kills Nicole Horn. The revenge is taken. Max is finished with it, and the cops are on their way to take him in. On the way out, Max watches Alfred in the crowd and believes that he will keep his end of bargain and free him. They both had the look of a winner. This was the whole story of Max Payne 1. Well, in my opinion, I think the game's story was well done. I think it was written well for an action game. What made the story better was the comic panels they drew with the magnificent voice acting on the Max. But sometimes I do admit that the story felt a bit overextended. And despite the fact that the V sequence had a story impact and a funny joke, but I think it could have been written better in some sequences. In terms of gameplay, Max Payne starts on a really good start. The gameplay is extremely fun at first 4 hours, but when the second act begins, it becomes more and more difficult and exhausting at some point. I was generally not a fan of the factory and the bay parts of the gameplay, but the rest of the game feels really good and I gotta admit that the slow motion gunplay of the game felt extremely good. And it is not just implemented for action's sake, but serves an extremely good purpose in the freshness and coziness of the gameplay. Speaking of guns, the aiming part of the gameplay is well done. To be honest, the game is really old, but I gotta say the gunplay doesn't feel that old and you can really enjoy the smooth gameplay of the game. In terms of guns, well, the melee weapons are a joke. Although they one-shot enemies, but when you want to use them for offense, they are really not a good option. In pistols, we got Desert Eagle, which is a single automatic gun that gives out real damage with good range. And we got Beretta and Dual Beretta, which is good for the starting points of the game, but as the game progresses, their damage and their range is not enough to keep the enemies dead. The shotguns pack a punch, but you should consider them an AoE weapon, like Resident Evil games. The standard shotgun pack a punch on close quarters, and double-barreled have even more damage to them, but they both lack in ammunition. Overall, they are not that much handy compared to the other guns, but Jackhammer is another story. It really is a good gun and almost have none of the negative points of the previous shotguns, and you can go guns and blazing and kill almost everyone on your path. Assault rifles consist of 2 guns, Colt Commando and Ingram. Colt Commando is basically the best gun in the game, and you can have a good time killing criminals and agents alike with it. Ingram is a good gun, but its bad aim and lesser damage compared to Colt Commander makes it a less wanted choice. But it almost replaces the roles dual breathers had in the earlier stages of the game. Then we have ourselves a M79, which is basically a grenade launcher, and grenades and molotovs. Grenades deal a good amount of damage if thrown right, but that's not the case for bosses because they have more HP than the other goons. Molotovs deal a good amount of damage, and if it's thrown right, can have extremely good outcomes. At last we got the sniper rifle, which is headshot and everyone will fall, has extremely good range and good damage, but a slow reloading speed. It also is the kind of one-shot bosses in the head. The healing system consists of painkillers, which are drugs that are used by Max. After using it, you must wait for a bit so the healing works and then use another. All this said, the game is really hard. Even though I played it on the normal mode, it is really hard and constant savings can really help you clear the game. I myself had a lot of problem completing a game because at some parts it was really hard. The game is also full of Easter eggs and secrets alike, and you can see a secret mission after completing the game in the hardest difficulty. About the boss fights, well, there are not much to be said, and they are just regular goons with more HP to them. That just makes the fight a bit harder. That's the only thing that is related to the boss fights. Max Payne was a game that I really enjoyed playing, and although the game had the difficulties and old system, it didn't feel unplayable and was surprisingly playable to the point that I played it simultaneously for 6 hours. The magic that the Remedy Studios created by the game still lingers in other games that came after it. Its narrative and soundtrack was really something that put Max Payne as one of the games that forever revolutionized gaming. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed playing this game. Be sure to like and subscribe so you will be notified of the videos that is being uploaded. Stay motivated, stay strong, and I see you all in the next video.